Inshallah, the recording will be posted on our YouTube channel, inshallah. Okay. So for those who are new here, we are Velicham Europe's Students Wing, a platform of Indian Muslim students across Europe. Our parent community is Strive Europe, like Velicham Europe. It was Velicham Europe. Now we are trying to rebrand into Strive Europe, which is a community of Kerala Muslim expats in Europe and Africa as well. Coming back to our event, so we know like we are living in a world where everything is a scenario to be solved. So the systems thinking or holistic thinking is a tool. It's a great tool which will help us to be progressive in our career or life. Like it teaches us like to solve how these scenarios like with a different approach, inshallah. So by attending this session with this novel and different approach, you can equip yourself with the knowledge to decipher complex problems with confidence and creativity, inshallah. We have our speaker, Brother Haneef Mohamed, who is for the last year serving as systems and development engineer at Rolls-Royce Berlin. He is also the leader of the Strive Europe community, the community I talked about, like Strive Europe community. He's the leader as well. So inshallah, let's get benefited from his knowledge and expertise. So Haneefka, over to you.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Thank you, Nasif, for a warm welcome. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
You still can see, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, thank you everyone for joining this session. Before I start, I just want to ask you a few questions because I have seen the background of people who have registered and it was very diverse. So I want to still see what's your background. So if you can just type in the, I hope you're students or professionals, if you can just type in if you're a student, what you're studying, and if you're a professional, what is your area of work? If you can just type in the chat, that'll be good. Just to get a quick feel of the audience, yeah. So we have students from, there's a software engineer, MSc Data Analytics, ECU development. I don't know what is ECU. Yeah, maybe you can describe further down. Masters Anthropology, Finance, Software Engineering, Biotechnology, Systems Engineer. That's good. As a student, please can you put your specialization? What student in educational research, mechanical engineer, MSc statistics. Okay, UG software, botany. Okay. Yeah. So as you can see, there's a lot of students from different backgrounds. So I'll try to keep I prepared in such a way that it will be useful for students from all all areas of studies, but unfortunately, I am a mechanical engineer and I work in the mechanical engineering industry. So there might be few things which is a bit biased towards my background. So I ask you to bear with me on that. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for sharing. And if anyone is like traveling or on the way or lying on your couch, I would ask you to try to sit at a proper posture like you would sit in listening a lecture, because that posture also is important to understand stuff. Yeah, because I do sometimes like that. That's why from my experience, I'm saying that, yeah, it always feels better to be in a good posture when we try to listen something. Yeah, otherwise we might miss something. So what I'm going to talk about is that, yeah, I'll give a few words about myself and some disclaimers, and before getting into the topic, we'll prime ourselves with some thinking concepts, and then I will bore you with some, yeah, theory of systems and systems thinking and why is it important. Unfortunately, we can't avoid that. Uh, so I don't guarantee that I will keep you entertained throughout this talk. But towards the end of the session, there are some examples which you might feel interesting, which will help you to understand the concept, and also maybe you would like to apply in your studies or job or wherever. Yeah. So I come from Kerala, Calicut, and I now live in Berlin with my family. I have a daughter. She is in third grade. Alhamdulillah, we are happy here. The rest of my family is in India, and we have a good community in Berlin. So yeah, we don't want to rush back soon, but some time I want to rush to the beach you can see on the left. Yeah, that's the Calicut beach. I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm specialist in energy management, and I'm working in the gas turbine industry for more than 10 years now. I started as a guest lecturer. I was taking classes to my own junior batch, yeah, for a few months. Then I worked as a research associate in NIT Calicut. And then, yeah, I studied there and for my master's, and then I started to work at Quest, which is a consultancy. And I used to travel to Europe and UK at those times. And with that experience, I was able to apply to an OEM, Rolls-Royce, and I started in Bangalore, and then I moved to Berlin. So I was working as a systems design engineer for a few years, and then I'm doing the development engineering work, which is validation and verification. And yeah, like Nasi already told, uh, I'm part of Velicham Europe community, um, and also a Forum for Innovation and Research in Science and Technology. So I have taken a similar session a few years back in that forum. So what I want to say is that, yeah, since we all work in industries, we know that we are obliged to keep um, make certain statements whenever we talk outside. So I'm not presenting this on behalf of the organization, the company I work. This is all my understanding about the topic, and all the information I present is available in public domain. Uh, yeah, if you have various. Sorry, I put this today morning. So you have various inspirations to think, yeah, and one of the greatest inspirations for humankind is the Holy Quran, which inspires us to think, yeah, and there are several verses in Quran asking us to think. So maybe this is something you can read through on the screen. That the translation says, to those who pay, to those who pay heed or who pay attention to what is said and follow the best of it, they are the ones whom Allah has guided to the right way. They are the ones endowed with understanding. Yeah. So whenever we get to hear something, yeah, it's best that we give attention to it, because it's our time. We don't want to lose our time. And then you need to grasp the best out of it and leave the rest. Yeah. Okay. Then before we get into systems thinking, I think thinking is something which, like I told, all the books, yeah, which Allah has sent across, and the civilizations which has passed before us were pretty good in thinking, yeah. And we know the various philosophers, yeah. In recent times also we have we can see that people are continuing to think about thinking. There are a lot of books you can read about thinking. So I was inspired by one of the books, yeah, and then wanted to just share you something to prime you about thinking, yeah. So I want you to just look at the picture, yeah. And then let's go to the next picture. So I think when you looked at the picture one and picture two, within a fraction of a second, you can recognize what's going on, yeah. So this is a cheerful picture. Don't need to explain what you're looking at. And this is something, yeah, agony or anger or angst or whatever, yeah. But it's a complex emotion, but you could recognize. You want to ask something, Nasi?
No, no, no.
Okay. Okay, so it's automatic, yeah. Your brain can recognize this complex emotions within a fraction of a second. If you want to program something to recognize this, yeah, it's doable, but the nuances might be very difficult. So people working in AI or image recognition and so on can understand, yeah, the difficulties in understanding these complex emotions. But we are very good at, yeah, even the children, yeah, uh, they're inbuilt with the software to recognize feelings, emotions, and love and care, and express that. Even though they don't know languages, they are very good at understanding people's feelings. So I think it's not developed; it's inbuilt that we can understand complex images and recognize and come up with responses. Yeah. Now, if I ask you this, I want you to calculate what is 17 times 26. There's a little bit of pain, right? It's not so easy. Yeah, it's a simple number. Maybe you are very good at mathematics can solve this. But if I make it, a bigger number, or I put a fraction, 17.5 or 26.732, even though the quantities are so small, we take time. Yeah. So the difference here is that, yeah, the picture one and two, yeah, our mind has two domains, yeah. Sometimes they call it system one or system two, yeah, or to represent that we have a analytical side of our mind, yeah, where we need to consciously apply logics, yeah. So when you want to calculate something, actually you are spending energy and effort in an aspect of your brain where you are actually involved, yeah. So it takes your focus from other things, yeah, like magicians when they do tricks, actually they actually distract us by assigning something to something else, yeah. So our minds are focused on something and then they can do the trick. So the mind has a problem that it cannot focus on several things at a time. And especially when you have analytical questions posed on you, you take an energy, and sometimes the psychologists call that is a system two, yeah, or system one. Yeah, it's a separate system of the mind where you need to actually involve and apply energy and focus, yeah. Whereas the other one, you can see at a spot, you're seeing like six child. If there was one child who was frowning, you would have recognized that, yeah. So that is a system one, which is like, it can't do analytical calculations, but it can process a lot of information, yeah. It's like an auto setting of the mind, where from images or sounds or touches, you can process or grasp a lot amount of information, but it is not like mathematical equations. Yeah, it doesn't go very detailed into calculations and so on. So these two magical aspects of the mind, yeah, you can keep in your mind, because when we get into systems thinking, we need to switch between these two layers of the mind. Yeah, so uh, there are some people who are very good at mathematics, for example, and there are some people who are, they are very good at talking to people or have more relational skills. Maybe it is because they didn't put effort, or they didn't get exposed to the training their aspects of the mind. Yeah, so there's two aspects of the mind or brain. If you don't train it, or if you don't focus on it, or if you're not having a liking towards it, your abilities will grow in different directions. Yeah, so as a systems thinker, yeah, you are posed with a challenge. If you want to be a good systems thinker, yeah, you don't need to be good at mathematics, but what I'm trying to explain is that you need to be good at applying logic. You need to sit, and you can't do systems thinking just like looking at a picture, yeah. Just like writing poetry or daydreaming is not sufficient for systems thinking. You also need to sometimes apply logic and get into the details. So That's how systems thinking work. Yeah. So, and you need to be aware that you are using these two aspects of the mind, switching between going into deep aspects of thinking, and also stepping back and using your automated thinking process. Yeah. So your mind is actually switching between system 1 and 2 constantly when you are in the process of systems thinking. Okay, then what are systems? I think as all educated engineers, this is something but just to give you a flavor, yeah, a system is a set of elements or parts or ideas which are connected to each other directly or indirectly with a meaning or purpose. Yeah. So the important aspects here when you talk about system is that you need to have or you have elements, yeah, and they have connections with a purpose. Yeah. So when you look at your body or anything around you can all see systems and systems within systems and super systems and subsystems. Yeah. So the whole universe you can picturize as a system. Yeah. So there are elements, yeah, various elements which are connected to each other. And they tend to, some of them tend to have a purpose. Some of them we know that they have purpose. Some of them we don't know, right? And when you synthesize systems, obviously, when you want to manufacture a product like an aircraft or a scientific equipment, yeah, obviously you do with it a purpose. Yeah. So you start from a purpose, then you try to break it down into functions or elements. There are various ways of doing that, and then it's important that how you understand the connections. Yeah. And then there are various definitions. Yeah. So one of the definitions from the engineering sector, there is a consortium in COSE. Yeah. So that's the International Council on Systems Engineering. They use the systems thinking quite extensively to come up with tools and methods to make good engineering. Yeah. And they define like a system is an arrangement of parts or elements that together exhibit behavior or meaning that the individual constituents do not. Yeah. So otherwise it's a redundancy or duplication, right? If there is a small element within the system which can achieve the behavior of the system, it doesn't make sense, right? So that means when you remove a part of the system, yeah, it can't exhibit some behaviors, right? So it's a collection of elements, yeah, which together uh, produces a meaningful outcome. Now, we talked about systems, yeah. So I think Nessie already told, yeah, a few things about systems and thinking, yeah. But unfortunately, I need to repeat that. As I told, some part of the talk will be boring, but I hope you get some insights, yeah. So it's a way to think, organize thoughts and ideas to achieve something, yeah. So like I told, it's about thinking, yeah. And I just explained two aspects of thinking. If you get into the philosophy of thinking, there are various angles which you can look at thinking, yeah. So systems thinking is some organized way of thinking. Yeah, with some you want to achieve something. Yeah, it could be synthesizing some systems, or it could be and looking at a system as it is now to improve it or solve some issues. Yeah, we'll get into some examples later. It's also a way to look at opportunities. Yeah, needs. Yeah, it could be from a marketing point of view or social point of view, or it could be an engineering or technical or whatever. Yeah. So financial. So there are opportunities and you want to look at things in a holistic manner. Yeah. And then you can apply systems thinking. And you get a lot of perspectives. Yeah. If you apply this thought, yeah, you get a lot of perspectives. And then you get to see the bigger picture. I'll show you some examples later on. So there are various people. I think systems thinking was there from right from humanity was born, but the field of systems thinking as um, a faculty or a, a branch of science or education, yeah, emerged in the recent years like every other branch, yeah. And then there are names of people who kind of coined the terms and so on, but that's not very important to us, yeah, because it can be debated who framed this words. That's very debatable, yeah, because thousands of years before itself, the various philosophers has utilized this thinking already. So why is it important? Yeah, you can see on the right side, there's a picture. So it's a very simple problem, and maybe you have come across this. If you see that we had this problem of pests getting our in the farms. Yeah, we have pests which eat away our crops, right? And then what did we do? We tried to put pesticides, right? And then we know that what happened due to the use of pesticides, right? It actually it had health issues on the human beings, yeah, because we start to eat stuff, even though we clean it, yeah, we start to eat things with chemicals sprayed on it, which is not good for us. Even we get cancer or very serious diseases from this whatever we eat, which has been sprayed with pesticides. And the other side effect was it actually was creating a vicious cycle, right? Because there are some natural elements which actually in the food chain they eat, pests are eaten by birds, for example, yeah, or there are other bigger insects which eat this pest, yeah, and then the next up in the chain eats the other one. So there's always a chain of natural biological creatures which actually eat and control the cycle, yeah. But what happened, we due to greed, yeah, we don't want to give our earned or efforts in the fields, yeah. We want the crops 100 percentage in our yield, yeah, or harvesting. We don't want to give it to any insects, yeah. So we sprayed these pesticides, but it actually killed all this in the cycle. And it also killed for example, how does how does crops get flowers and how they turn into fruits, bees, yeah. They help in spreading uh, they help in spreading the pollen, right? So from flowers you have the pollens, yeah, and you need some elements, natural elements, yeah, like wind or bees or other insects which actually come to suck the honey from the flower, and they take the pollens to the mating fruit plants or other trees, right? And when you spray this pesticides in apple groves or whatever, actually it also kills the small insects which help in pollination, right? And the whole cycle is disturbed, and that is because either we don't have knowledge about the system, we don't want to think in a systems way, or our greed, right? So when you look at things, yeah, we live in a world where that was just one example, yeah. We live in a world where it is highly interconnected, yeah. And if we don't have the skill of looking from a systems point of view, we tend to invent or cause a lot of unintended consequences, right? So maybe there is only one or two slides, and I hope things get interesting. Yeah, so these are some of the thoughts which you need to be having in your background. So the key elements of systems thinking is that it's always your attempt is not to shrink yourself, yeah, rather to go up. But there are limits, right? So when you are posed with a problem, yeah, either social issues or your technical issues at work, or you want to invent a new system for working together in an industry, or you want to come up with a new product, always it's better that you have the tendency to think beyond your immediate focus area, right? So but there is a limit, yeah, because of limited time and resources, but the tendency should be towards understanding the universe or not just the system, right? And then yeah, like I told, your limitations, your funding will actually, or your time will actually define your boundaries, right? And then you need to actually treat everything else as a black box, or you need to kind of limit with the exchanges, right? Key exchanges between your system and the universe. Then you start looking at the relationships, yeah. So in systems thinking, it is then the elements are important as well as the relationships are even more important, right? And then you connect this and you get a holistic picture, yeah. And then you turn when you work on that, you will get you will come to know the complexities of these interactions, yeah. So there are some learnings or key aha moments or key uh, lessons which actually prompt us to use the thinking, yeah. So one thing is that we unwittingly create our own problems, right? Like I told, when we were spraying the pesticides, we wanted to solve some issues, but we were creating our problems, right? And then these quick fixes, they had unintended consequences, yeah. So it could be greed, or maybe it's lack of knowledge. We were very sincere, right? So let's say a farmer, yeah, he may not have the education, or he may not understand. He might just listen to uh, um, what knowledge people say, and then he might just spray in his field. So it was not his intention to destroy the environment, right? But it had unintended consequences. And then maybe he is also suffering from the consequences, or his children. To optimize the whole, we need to improve the relationships. Yeah, so this is very important aspect of systems thinking. It's not the elements we are trying to improve; it's also the relationships between them. And then one important thing is that if we try to overdo things, yeah, it don't usually end up in good results. Yeah, so usually when you start analyzing things and you apply systems thinking, you will feel that, or you'll understand that a few changes over time produce large consequences or large positive changes. So this is a good picture, yeah. So just to kind of helps you to uh, digest, or create a picture, or hold on to some of the information which has been already told. So there's an example of the elephant, right? So these are blind people; they are not able to see, and then they went to analyze the elephant. Yeah, so whoever gets the tail, yeah, he thinks that the elephant is like a rope, or an object similar to a rope, and then whoever is sitting on the elephant might feel it like a brush, yeah, because of the surface there. And then, yeah, whoever is holding the trunk might feel that it's a snake, and so on. Yeah, so it depends. And this actually happens. It's not exaggerated. This actually happens in organizations when you are in silos. Yeah, and then you don't understand the holistic picture. You might tend to think of things what you touch and feel, and this we see across organizations and societies. Yeah, it might look very funny and realistic, but actually this is real. Yeah, and sometimes we tend to behave like that because of our convenience. And then you can see on the right, yeah, it's the usually you might be familiar the iceberg model, or the iceberg root cause analysis mentality or methodology. Yeah, so whenever you see something happened, an event, it's actually happening after a lot of things which has been already happened in the background. Yeah, so the tip of the iceberg is something, it's an event or incident or an accident. Yeah, but usually there might be some patterns or trends happened already before. Like if you have a disease, for example, and you get sick, you don't get sick usually on a day unless you have an accident, right? So there might be some indications which you already got, and you are be constantly ignoring it, and then you get into this situation, right? So if you don't sense what's going on, you might get a hit at the end. So the patterns. And then if you go into further uh, ground realities, or the portion of the iceberg which is under the water. Usually icebergs are really huge. I don't know whether you have seen the pictures of icebergs. Icebergs are really huge under the surface. You get really surprised. You only see the tip. Yeah, the tip is very small compared to the iceberg. Yeah, and that's the same case for problems. Yeah, so the root causes of the problems, usually they are very big and wide and happened over a long term of time, which is resulting. You can apply this to social things also. You can apply it to engineering or medicine or health or whatever, finance. You can see that the underlying things which actually causes events or patterns are really huge, and you can't change this by quick fixes. You need to really understand what's going on in the system. Yeah, what are the dynamics, what are the in social scenarios. Yeah, maybe policies has driven uh, these issues. Yeah, perceptions of people, and the purpose or the intent of the people or involved stakeholders. Yeah, various pressures acting in lot many directions. Yeah, so actually the right side, these pictures are from a book called Systems Thinking for Social Change. Yeah, so this David Peter, he has done a lot of research and work on social change. How do we apply systems thinking in social change? And he's a consultant in this area. So I'll skip to uh, some of the examples. If you have a paper and pen, yeah, I would suggest you can scribble something. So the next few slides, do you want a break, or you want to ask me something before I proceed? So now we are getting into some examples. I think I have been talking for 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Is there something on the chat? No. Okay, so I think there are no questions. So as I told, this systems thinking is a science in itself. So there are a lot of methods, tools, and concepts. Yeah, I can't explain you even a bit, and I don't want to get into. So what I'm trying to use the next 30 minutes is to get you some flavor into some of the methods and tools, which might interest you to take up this learning a bit further. And I would say that the journey is not easy. The systems thinking is about thinking, and we all know that thinking is a bit challenging, yeah, sometimes. And this is involved thought. So I would say that it's really rewarding. There are so many powerful tools, but you may need to invest time, yeah. So the next few slides I'll be sharing is some of the tools used for synthesizing products, or more from a technology point of view. And then there are a few slides which are more related to social issues and so on. Yeah. Okay. Mm, so let's say we have a problem. Yeah, you want to, it's a very simple problem about automobiles, right? What does automobiles do? We know, but we go from a synthesis point of view, yeah, how we approach issues. So you want to the requirement. Let's say this guy is the customer, yeah. And he wants to get from A to B, yeah? Or there are people who want to get to from A to B, and then you need an enabler, yeah? So we already know that we are talking about some kind of transport mechanism, yeah, but we don't actually, when such a problem is posed, actually systems thinkers don't get into solutions, yeah? So solutioning is a different part of, synthesizing. But at this point, you try to understand the requirement in its entirety, right? So because maybe he's talking about teleportation, right? We don't know. Uh, so you need to understand actually what he's talking about, what is the need, yeah? So here he's just saying you that I want to get from A to B, and I need an enabler, right? Maybe somebody could carry him. That's what he wants, yeah? We don't know. So we need to understand the requirement. It might seem silly, but usually sometimes people start developing products without actually understanding the requirement, and like the elephant, or they come up with something which is not asked, and then how do we understand what's the requirement? So there are this w and how questions, very logical, but sometimes we don't ask some of these questions and we end up in a different solution than expected, right? So you can ask what you want to transport. Is it only you, or you want to transport your animals or goods, yeah? And where do you want to transport it to? Yeah, is it between A to B? Is it between a continent, or is it between two villages? Or is it between moon and the earth? Yeah. So you can ask all this where and when. When do you want to do it? Yeah. Is it all weather? Is it only during daytime or nighttime? And then actually, why do you want to do this? Yeah. So this is a bit detailed. Yeah. Getting into all the W questions, and then how question. Do you have any preferences, right? Do you want to go above the surface, or on the surface, or under the surface? Yeah. How much safe you want to be? Yeah. And then how comfortable you want to be, and all those questions. Yeah. So this is kind of, you can try to drill into the requirements. Yeah. And then you find that, yeah, so this could lead to different solutions, yeah, at this point. So these are like, you collect the requirements, and at each state of requirement collection, you can actually also drive the solutions arena, because some of the potential next level systems disappear when you get to know the questions, right? Because if he says that I want to be on the surface, then you need to design or develop a device which moves on the surface. But if he says that I want to go both on surface and the sky, then your solution change. And if he says that only in the sky, yeah, through airspace, then your solution is different. So when you get to know the user needs, and the user puts constraints, actually that drives your thinking to the next level in a slightly different direction, right? uh, then Okay, then he came up with his needs, yeah. But we know that he's not the only element in the universe or in the system, right? Because he might be not aware of various things. So as an engineer or as a person who is trying to solve this issue or come up with a solution for this requirement, you need to put yourself in the shoes of a systems thinker. And there are several ways you can start going around this, yeah. One of the ways is to do a stakeholder analysis, yeah, because this will give you the concept or solution you want to create, and then how it is connected with the universe, right? And then when you start doing this stakeholder analysis, you will find that, yeah, you want to come up with a solution or a system which takes one person or goods or whatever from A to B. What can it be involved with? Yeah, so there are people involved, there are buyers, there's cost, there's sellers, manufacturers, there are regulations, so this is kind of a brainstorming exercise. So maybe you can do it your own, but then you are limited to your knowledge. But when you have a team or you involve people who have dealt with similar problems, yeah, so then you get more knowledge, more you identify all the potential elements in this analysis, right? So this is one of the simplest but very powerful tools, because sometimes big players, they miss some of the stakeholders, and then it becomes very expensive at the end. For example, regulations, yeah, usually startups and all, they kind of ignore the regulations, yeah. So they might develop some products, let's say, or solutions which the regulation has already put a constraint on. So, and then you also know that nowadays, through regulations, actually there are a lot of competitions going on, right? So if you're not aware of a regulation, yeah, or changing regulation, or a regulation which is put into ballot, for example, let's say, and then you come up with a system which has some crucial elements which is kind of banned now or going to be banned in 10 years, then who's going to buy your product, right? So it's very important that you put your shoes in a systems thinker and try to identify what are the immediate or direct or indirect stakeholders which could influence what you're doing. And then I just picked one stakeholder here, yeah, and then I'm trying to with the system, what is the interactions the stakeholders can have, right? So let's say I'm now talking about the not the universe of people, but just the people I want to transport. Yeah. So what are the relations? Yeah. So the vehicle or the system, yeah, it has to obey the commands. Yeah, it has to comfort the people. Yeah, it has to transport the people. It has to protect the people. Yeah. And then what does the people do to the system? Yeah, the people will board in it. Yeah, the people tend to control it. Yeah, or they want to control it, and then they actually want to relax, yeah, or entertain themselves, yeah, and so on, yeah. So the system has to keep them entertained, yeah, or navigate them or support them, yeah. And then let's say take another stakeholder, yeah. So let's say that the terrain, or is the stakeholder, yeah. And then the terrain will need to communicate with the system, right? And then it has to, so the terrain also might resist or counteract on the system, yeah. It could be bumpy, yeah, sometimes, or it could be comfortable. So how do your system respond to that? What are the mechanisms you need to build in to make sure that you can have a smooth flow over the terrain? So I just put here one or two stakeholders, and you can see that a lot of requirements are starting to come in, right? This we didn't had in the beginning. We only knew that this guy or girl, yeah, they want to go from A to B. But when you start to drill down, look at their requirements, yeah, and then look at the stakeholders and try to understand the relationship between the stakeholders and the system, you start to come up with requirements, yeah, and then you really start to understand what you need to come up with, yeah. So yeah, this was one simple example, and you might be surprised that all these big corporate giants who make uh, astonishingly complicated, complex products, like even NASA, who sends rockets and people to space, they start with this kind of tool. So if there is a book or there's a document available, you can search in internet, NASA Systems Engineering Handbook, and you can say that they talk about the simple tools quite early. Yeah, so these are the tools which you need not ignore, but very simple, but very powerful at the very early stages of systems thinking. Yeah, when you want to synthesize a system, for example. Do you have any questions on this?
So is it like we start from the bigger picture and break down things into relationship between each parts of the system?
Actually, it has an iteration. Yeah. Whenever you want to, let's say you put your shoes, you can put your shoes in different roles, right? So now in this example, I am putting my shoes in terms of a engineer or a project manager or a requirements manager in a company. Yeah. And then I have a customer who has a need. Yeah. So this is that scenario. Yeah. In that scenario, I need to talk to him, right? Based on the scenario, things change. Yeah. So in this scenario, in this particular example, I am putting myself in the shoes of a solution provider, right? And then somebody is asking for a product or a system which actually meets his needs. And then the best way to proceed is to ask him what he needs. Yeah. And then he goes away because he will not design the system. That's my job. But I can always go back to him, right? And then how do I proceed? So there are various ways to proceed. So I'm just saying one way to proceed, yeah, is to think about the system which I want to put the system in purview, and I don't know what the system look like. You see at this stage, I have no clue what is the system, yeah, but still I can understand the interactions, yeah, with the system and the surroundings, right? So this is like a brainstorming exercise. So it's not actually top down or bottom up, yeah. It's actually, it's an iteration between uh, requirements and needs, and my idea about what I want to provide in, yeah. And then let's say when you get into the stages, you always can go back and talk to this guy. See, I'm thinking in the direction, I need to make some decisions, yeah. Can you help me? Yeah. Is it okay if I proceed in this directions? That will give you this benefit, and there are these problems, yeah. So your such demands are costly, expensive. Such demands are limited by regulation, yeah. So this interaction need to keep going, yeah. And sometimes what happens is that people just go in one direction and they never go back, and that also is very problematic. And we see that a lot of expensive changes has to be made, yeah, because of people not ready to actually go back and forth and iterate, yeah. I don't know whether it answered your question, Missy.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, then I move on. So so far I was, like I told, since we have a very diverse audience, I can't, I'm stopping myself going into more engineering and technical problems. There might be one or two examples which you can correlate. And whatever I told you, this is not limited to an engineering problem. Yeah, you can just change your shoe, and then you let's say you can put this person like a needy person. These are people who need, and then you are a social entrepreneur or you're a social worker, and you want to solve their need. You can use the same approach. So systems thinking is not limited to engineering, technology, or social science. It can be used across. And I just wanted to explore. That's why I started reading about the social systems thinking in social change, and I was quite surprised to see that already people are applying this thinking in social change, maybe much better than how we apply in engineering. Because social changes are more complex than engineering problems, because the stakeholders are not, you cannot actually, your system in an engineering world is many things are under your control. You can vary the parameters, whereas in social changes, many things are out of control and data is lacking, and they're very dynamic, and it's not easy to reach to things. Like when you are working in a lab or in a production environment, many of the things are static, and you have a lot of controls, and you work in a well coordinated fashion. Whereas when you get into social engineering, many of the players don't even talk to each other, don't even listen to each other, and their purpose is also different. Yeah, their intentions are different, and you have a lot of pressures going on. But when you are in an engineering or scientific environment, usually many things align automatically. Yeah, the purpose, at least an organization, has a single purpose. Yeah, but when you come to social dynamics, you see that it's totally different. So there are a lot of theories behind social systems thinking in social changes. Yeah, I'm not going to that. Some of which I already talked about is applicable for social change. I already told you, I showed you some figures. And there are various tools which you use for, understanding dynamic systems or mapping systems in social environment, right? So here I am showing a picture. Uh, so here, one of the tools they use is called cognitive mapping, where you think about, um, various elements in the society, right? So for example, here, uh, you see that they talk about government spending, yeah, shelters. And so here what's happening is that there was a scenario in US. The background of this mapping is that there was a scenario in Europe where they were studying homelessness. Yeah, so many people are getting homeless, and what is the reasons? Yeah, and then they were trying to do brainstorming and find out the causes. Yeah, and then this is one example. Yeah, it's not the full comprehensive example, just to see how cognitive mapping works. They identified the various elements, like a brainstorming or a mind mapping, which could actually lead into homelessness. Yeah, and then they are trying to link this. So I'm not going to details, but there are some interesting other tools which you can, I wanted to go a little bit into deep. So one is called causal loops. Yeah, so these causal loops are actually loops, yeah, which are used to, it's actually a loop, yeah, which is used to study social systems, yeah, quite widely. And what does it do? So let's say we have the problem here as homelessness, yeah, and then you have a solution to provide temporary shelters, yeah, and this is a loop, right? So homelessness, if you have homelessness, you provide temporary shelters, and if you have again homelessness, you provide temporary shelters, and this goes on, yeah. And then but the temporary shelters is not the long-term solution, yeah. So long-term solution might be making sure that these people have sufficient income, they are accepted in the society, and they don't go back to homelessness for whatever reasons, because sometimes homelessness is driven by people committing crimes and they end up in jail, and their families have nobody to take care, and they become homeless. So how do you stop crimes? Yeah, so the long-term solutions are very complex. Usually it's not actually like providing shelter. Yeah, actually sometimes providing shelters actually create negative cycles. That's called the vicious cycles. Yeah, because when there are organizations, NGOs, funders who just keep on giving temporary shelters for homeless people, the pressure to actually come up with long-term solutions will fly away, right? So actually sometimes when you try to help someone or when you try to solve issues, actually it is creating an even more problem, right? So that's the reason you need to always zoom out and look what's going on. Yeah, and long-term solutions are not easy. There is always a time delay. So these loops, you can see this loops actually identifies certain nouns or verbs, yeah, together. Yeah, so homelessness, temporary shelters, yeah, so these are all issues from your mind mapping. And then you're trying to find out the relationships, how does it work? Yeah, so when you have homelessness leading to temporary shelters, yeah, you put a positive sign here, means more homelessness, more temporary shelters, right? And then when you provide temporary shelters, it's getting negative, means the homelessness is reducing. Yeah, so sometimes people put here similar and opposite. Yeah, there are various ways of making these loops. Yeah, but these loops give you a sense of how the variables are related to each other, right? That you don't get easily in the mind map. Yeah, and then you can see there is two parallel lines here. That means there's a delay. So this picture actually what it is doing is that it is helping you to analyze a complex social situation and how does the elements work each other, right? But when you try to, if you want to convince somebody, it's much more easier to use such diagrams than talking through, right? It is more objective, and people can actually challenge you on the screen or on the figure. Is it really like this? Are there more elements to this? Yeah, and then you can develop a conversation and develop a discussion and slowly grow it, which everybody can come back and validate all the time. Yeah, so if you go to the next developed yeah, this was very simplistic. Yeah, this is more developed. I want you to give some attention to this because this seems very interesting. Uh, uh, Also in technology, right? It's not only in social problems we use causal loops. So also in technology you can use similar loops. Yeah. So let's say you have people on the street, yeah, or hidden, yeah. So these are homeless people, yeah. And then you provide temporary shelters. Actually, in this figure, they have not put the plus sign or minus sign, but you can read that initially easily. So when you provide temporary shelters and support, you reduce the number of people on street, and that's an initial success. Yeah, that's one loop here. And then if you want a permanent solution for homeless people, you need comprehensive coordinated solutions, right? Long-term solutions, yeah. You need services, you need housing, you need jobs, yeah. So there are a lot of things which is required to make sure that people don't get on street again. It's not just providing shelters, yeah, but always that comes with a delay, right? People on street, immediately you can't jump into the solutions and or think about the solutions, and also implementation, there's a delay, right? But temporary shelters are relatively faster, right? But this is the best practice, yeah. And then uh, uh, when you have a delay, let's say temporary shelters and supports, if you provide, the problem is that the visibility of the, like I told in the previous slide, the visibility of the problem reduces, right? Because there is no immediate pressure. Because if there are a lot of people on roads, it will get media attention, and the authorities are required to take some actions, yeah. And people start to get into hospitals. The hospitals become full, yeah. So always this people who are on the street, when they're visible, yeah, it creates a need, yeah. But the problem is that this temporary shelters, when you provide temporary shelters, this actually takes that pressure out of the society, and that actually delays the coordinated long-term solution, right? So that's a vicious cycle, actually. So if you keep doing temporary shelters, actually your long-term solution gets delayed, right? And then there are other vicious cycles, actually. When you have temporary shelters, there are a lot of individual organizations, yeah, NGOs and so on, who want to actually solve this problem. And then they want funding, yeah, and they start to compete each other, and some get addicted to this, yeah. And this also actually takes away the resources from these long-term solutions, right? Because long-term solutions also need people, they need money, they need time, yeah, resources, thought. So when actually these individual organizations come and provide these temporary solutions, they are also creating a delay. So actually the final or the long-term solution is being hindered by this good work, that's why sometimes we say that you're unintentionally creating more problems trying to solve the issue, yeah. So but I'm not saying that this organization should not provide temporary shelters. The goal here is to understand what's going on, right? Because sometimes you keep on trying to solve an issue, and then you realize that it's not solving the issue. Why? In that scenario, you can use such diagrams and analyze what's going on. And then there you have this they call it reinforcing cycles, yeah, and then balancing cycles, yeah. So reinforcing could be this vicious reinforcing cycle is actually acting as a negative cycle here, right? Sometimes these vicious cycles can be also positive, but these two are actually negative cycles, right? And then there are barriers produced by homelessness and which is like difficulty assessing resources, yeah. Because when you try to like I said already, when you try to provide these shelters, it's actually getting more difficult to assess resources for providing the long-term solution. So actually, a temporary quick fix is creating a lot of problems here to provide the long-term solutions. Yeah, uh, I'm not saying that this analysis is correct, but actually this is from a work by David Peter and Michelle Goodman. They used it in a community in US, and then they were able to actually bring out what's going on, and that changed some policies. And then they could also give temporary shelters and also focus on providing the long-term solutions, right? And then another tool which we can use is this is called a bathtub analogy, because it's like in the bathtub you have water coming in from your clean water coming in, and then you have your water going in the drain, right? You need to control both this. Otherwise, you will either not fill the bathtub or you might overflood the bathtub, right? So if you close the complete outlet, then your bathtub will flood. If you keep it open, it will get never filled. Yeah. So you control the level of the water in by adjusting the inlet and outlet. Yeah. That's the bathtub analogy. And then same way as you identified here, you have the various elements here. One good thing here is that you can actually apply the rates here. In this diagram, it's not easy to apply the rates. It's more of a conceptual understanding of the situation, how variables work each other, whether it is supporting, reinforcing, or balancing. Is it a negative, like a vicious cycle, or is it, actually solving the problem? That kind of issues can be understood from such diagrams. But here, actually, if you want to get into more mathematical uh, rates and so on, because that is also important, right? Because let's say there are people becoming at risk because their houses are not maintained. They are living in rent. They are going to get kicked off, or their income is going down. The expenses are shooting up. So there are some people at risk, right? And then these people become homeless. And then there are also people who are coming out from prison, or people who are supported, veterans and so on. They are also getting, coming from other states. They are also becoming homeless. They're coming to their base state, let's say. And you need to know the rate, right? If you're at a position or a role where you have some influence on addressing these issues, like an NGO, or have a government job which looks at homelessness, it's so important not only to understand the concept, like in this picture, also to know the rate, right? Otherwise, you can't come up with the need. So this kind of diagrams help you to calculate the rate, or actual number of people affected, or the entity affected by the issue, right? And then there are people moving into temporary housing. Some people move back to streets, and there are loops going on. And there are some people going into the permanent solution at the end, right? So you need to control these incoming rates. Usually, if the incoming rate, let's say more people becoming homeless, is equal to the people getting permanent housing, then you have this flow all the time, right? But if you can increase this housing by big projects, or big funding, actually you kind of get into a situation where you know all the people are provided with housing, right? And then you also identify more legs by which like for example here, prisoners. If you didn't recognize that prisoners are becoming, or their families are becoming homeless, you're not in a way to be prepared for the housing for them, right? So you need to study the issues. For example, in US, they found that drug people associated with drugs, transport, selling, they were usually put into jails, and then they go back, and then they come back to jail again, and then it's difficult for them to actually integrate into the society, right? And you can see that there are some countries where they don't have jails, and maybe this kind of studies has led them to think, actually, when you actually put somebody in jail, it might be creating more problems in the society. So why not actually keep him outside, and give him different set of trainings and tools, so that he can actually live a good life. These are the thoughts, or in social analysis, which might lead to different policies for the governments, right? And this is one causal loop, let's say for a pizza company. So it's just to see that, show you that these loops can be used in various domains. So let's say you have a pizza company, and then suddenly your sales volume is increasing because you did a campaign or something, then your profits are going up. But when your sales volume is increasing, that means you have the same staff, let's say, for example, same number of ovens. Then you tend to, your delivery times will increase, right? Because you can't produce fast, and you might also end up in poor pizza quality, right? And if you want to address this, you have a need to have additional logistics, more people, and more manufacturing capability, and that requires investment. But let's say that the people who are running this show, they don't want to invest. So there is a delay in investment. So this problem gets more. And then what happens when the quality comes down, or there is excessive delivery times? Your sales volume will decrease because your feedback loop is negative now. It comes at a bit of delay, but that actually controls the sales volume. So you get a negative sales volume because you're local tree. And then if the people who are managing the business, they think that they don't want to invest more into this, usually what happens is that the system get balanced again, right? Because now since you have low number of quantity to deliver, your quality and delivery times will improve. But if these guys want to invest, yeah, they could actually take off this negative loops, and this will further increase their sales volume and profits, and then they can get more money. It depends upon how you want to deal with the situation. Either you can invest and improve it, or you can keep like this and it adjusts itself, or maybe it gets even worse, right? Because you lose your existing customers as well. But this kind of diagrams, it's a simple diagram, not very complicated. It will help you to understand, what's going on with your business or social issues. I think that's all I wanted to share. I think I took more than an hour now, maybe, yeah, 1 hour now. If you have some questions or comments, please be happy to share. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Haneef, for your wonderful insights. It was really helpful and beneficial. Uh, anyone has questions, please do ask. Uh, I will start from myself. Like, how do you think like this lack of awareness about systems thinking? Like, so do you think people utilize that aspect as well? Lack of awareness about this systems thinking or holistic thinking, like propagandas, for example. So, so those who are unaware of this systems or holistic thinking, uh, like I hope you got my question.
Yeah, I think the thing is that the the people who want to make positive changes and is sometimes more unaware, I would say, about this, right? Because some of us already work in social organizations and situations, but we are very reluctant to use such tools in what we do. Yeah, so usually we lose the opportunity to actually understand ourselves, what's going on, and also disseminate that knowledge. So whatever is going around the world right now, yeah, wars are going on, people are being displaced, there are occupations around the world, there are discriminations going on. But actually, if you can get hold of the some people with goodwill from various organizations, you won't be able to get everybody. But I believe that in every organization, in every aspect of the political space or social space, there will be some nice, like-minded people who want to you know, be there for the good of the people. So if this some people can take initiatives who can bring people together and start thinking with a same purpose, same goal, that we want peace and uh, support each other. I think that will actually kick off. And one of the benefits of systems thinking is that this is actually giving you confidence and driving you to think like that. So when you come up with such diagrams, actually you can't be biased anymore, and then you don't fight, because there is data, there is knowledge, there is logic, and there's no, you can't drive discussions. Let's say you're sitting together in a meeting where you want to address a social issue. If you don't use such diagrams, it can be very difficult to converge on anything because people can keep on arguing. But if you actually identify the elements and identify the relationships and put it in a diagram and show it to people, then the debates are disappearing immediately, right? So I think this your question, I got the point. The lack of I just showed you only few tools which I know. There are n number of tools and methods, and there are a lot of experts in this field, yeah, who are very good at applying the systems thinking. And if there is knowledge and interest among people, policymakers, NGOs, who are and even in your industry or in your business, if you start applying such tools, it can actually benefit everyone. Yeah, so there's no doubt. Yeah, the lack of awareness of systems thinking is pretty dangerous. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I can ask a question. I would ask you to just put a comment in the uh, chat that how you felt this session in 1 or 2 words. Yeah, just want to get a feedback, because if you think this is a useful tool, it's worth studying this topic further. Otherwise, let's see what's the response. Yeah. Do you think these tools are useful? How did you feel about the
There's a question in the chat.
okay. Sorry, I don't see it. Can you read it for me?
Yeah. As far as engineering is concerned, we need to break down a system into subsystems, components, clean, define problems, and its requirements. How far do you think we can apply this thinking in personal or social life?
Yeah. The thing is that see, when I presented these examples, I don't know whether you're still seeing the systems thinking has different approaches, right? So the first example I presented was let me try to, I don't know why my screen is, yeah, I don't bring it up. I can just verbally answer. So if you see that initially I explained you, understanding requirements, getting into subsystems and so on. That is an approach which is mostly suited for industrial environment, right, or engineering and technology. And because most of the social systems around us are already established, we get very less chance to design a system, right? That's why when I showed you causal loops, yeah, that is one of the systems thinking techniques which is used to analyze the existing systems, and identify the problems with the existing systems. So systems thinking is not always synthesis, so the engineering, in an engineering environment, you get a lot of opportunity to synthesize systems, right? Rather than analyzing. Yeah, sometimes analysts do subsystem analysis, but when you come up with new products or services or solutions, you are in a synthesis mode. Yeah, so the stakeholder analysis and getting into solutions, and based on that, there are various other tools, yeah, whereby you understand the function means, and then group them to form subsystems. Yeah, that approach is well suited for technology products or solutions where you're synthesizing something. Yeah, but in social scenario, usually the systems already exist and then you're trying to resolve it. You may not need such tools. The tools you need is like causal loops, for example, where you're trying to, or mind mapping, or cognitive mapping, or the bathtub model, where actually you're applying your systems thinking to analyze the system and then identify the issues and resolve it. Yeah, so yeah, it, as a system thinker, you need to be very well aware that you can't apply all tools everywhere, but you can apply the thinking. Yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, don't apply everything everywhere. It may not be suitable. And be also aware that are you synthesizing a system, or are you analyzing a system? Because synthesizing social systems is very difficult because they exist already. You need to first analyze the system, and then maybe you can recommend changes to the elements and relations. Yeah, how can you influence the elements? How can you actually because for the same example, like homelessness, I don't think you will have any power to eliminate any element. Yeah, because NGOs are there, governments are there, policies are there, homeless people are there, and they get homeless every day. Yeah, but you won't be able to eliminate, but you may be able to influence. So you can say that, come on, guys. Uh, Providing temporary shelters is good, but we also need to focus on permanent housing, and that requires critical services, that requires solutions for people to get jobs. Yeah, that requires education. Yeah, that requires de-addiction policies. That requires managing how do we put people in prison. Do we need to put people in prison for everything, or should we change our laws, change our policies, change our punishment policies. So this kind of analysis leads to a lot of insights which you can apply or influence to make a social change. But there you are not really synthesizing. But maybe there are scenarios where you can synthesize systems. Yeah, but I'm not saying that it's not possible. But yeah, you need to be careful where you apply your knowledge. No, it's not a one solution that fits all. It's correct. Then, as far as what was the other question?
Is systems thinking similar to first principles thinking, or are they different ways to approach a solution? If there are different ways to approach a solution, uh, okay, if there are different ways to approach a solution, then which one is a better way to think? Like systems thinking or first principle thinking? Also, my reason to ask the question is because both ways require you to spend time, and because of opportunity cost, we might not be able to choose both. And in the beginning, you mentioned the ayah that is necessary as Muslims to learn about the ways that exist and to use the better method. So,
Yeah, I didn't actually understand what is this first principles thinking. Can you just explain that, Adnan? So, okay, you can speak.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned that in the beginning that no, somewhere around the middle that NASA is like one of the organizations that uses systems thinking, like
Mhm.
because they have the handbook on the principles of systems thinking, and so they actually tried to like manufacture like reusable rockets, and how they did it was they sent the rockets into space, and when they landed, like they would like fish them out of the sea and then like refurbish them. But as opposed to like SpaceX, which is relatively like a newer firm, like compared to like NASA, what they try to do is like they try to land the like rockets on like on a deck instead of like fishing them out of the sea. And SpaceX is like known for using like first principles thinking, wherein they just use like in a way they just like see what is actually like an axiom in a way, like what is like a basic truth, and then they try to like build on that, you know.
Mhm.
So I just want to know like which one is like a better like in systems thinking, I feel like you have to like look at what exists as a norm and then build on that. And first principles, you sort of like you sort of like assess if a certain process is like is a necessary thing. Like for example, if they had to like send a rocket to space, if they see that, oh, do we actually require like maybe like gas turbines or like gas rockets or something instead of like ion rockets. I mean that's my uh reason for like asking, like you
Yeah,
know.
so I think if you have listened to the section where I started with this figure, right? I was saying exactly the same thing. Yeah, so I can just pop it up again.
Okay.
Um,
there is another question like where we can have more resources for the.
I think I can share you after the. So if you see, I can share after the session, yeah, some links to some resources. So if you
Okay, in
see
the
this
group, yes.
picture, Adnan, you can see, right? So in systems thinking and in the first principles, we start with the same thing, like in this case, this guy want to get from A to B. Yeah. So let's say the rocket wants, or the rocket is always transporting something, right? Either passengers or goods or animals. So if it's NASA or SpaceX, they would have asked the same thing, right? Well, how do we want to start? Yeah, from A to B. Yeah, we just want to enable it. Is it by rockets or is it by teleportation or whatever, so systems thinking and first principles thinking are the same, they don't differ, but system thinking is a package way to look at system, but whereas first principle thinking is like you can apply it anywhere, there are no constraints, right? It's pure logic and philosophy, whereas systems thinking is like packaging to look at systems, so I hope this answers your question, right? So there is, in effect, it's one and the same, but yeah, first principles are like you're more free to apply your logical thinking directly. You're asking questions, and but systems thinking give you some set of methods and tools on top of the first principles, right? So that's what I see, and I think the decisions NASA made might be because the constraints, or they had funding issues or time issues, and they might have evaluated the solutions and they didn't have the technology at the time, and that would have driven the decisions. Yeah, but SpaceX, since they are already developing from what NASA has developed, yeah, they are highly supported by NASA, they could go one step ahead, so it depends upon the time in which you think about it, and the technology around and the funding around, and on what you're stepping on, you right.
Okay. So you're saying that systems thinking and first principles thinking are similar in the way that we look at a situation,
Yeah.
but first principles thinking can be applied to like any situation wherein you kind of like go deeper into seeing if something's
Yeah.
required.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
first principles thinking packaged for systems is systems thinking, it starts from the same place, yeah, and then you develop, yeah. And then
Okay.
systems thinking has two branches. One is synthesize and one is analysis, So synthesize is where you want to develop new systems, and analysis is more of understanding existing system, either to improve it, or change it, yeah.
Okay.
And you can do this both for social systems and technological systems. But social systems, like I said, most of them are already existing, and then you want to use analysis tools more. But whereas when you are in big corporations where you want to develop, you could use both. And sometimes we tend to use more of coming up with a solution, concepts, requirements approach. Yeah, but existing system analysis also can be done. Maybe SpaceX, they started by looking at NASA rockets, and then they
Okay.
improvised. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's too hard to do this because since the world we live in, there are already a lot of solutions around. We sometimes are forced, or to keep things at concept level, it's very difficult. Yeah, we jump into solutioneering. Yeah, that's the problem. Were there more questions in the chat? Sorry, I'm not looking actively the chat.
There was one question of asking about the resources for studying more about this.
Yeah, I think I can suggest you some books. Yeah, so like I said, Systems Thinking for Social Change by David Peter Straw, if you're interested in the social aspects of thinking. Then if you just search in Google for NASA Handbook for Systems Engineering, that's also a good resource because systems thinking is the basis for systems engineering. And then when you try to understand systems engineering, you can grasp systems thinking, yeah, because systems thinking, if you go raw, it is very philosophical in nature sometimes, and it's not easy. So I think most of you, when you posted your field of studies, I think you need to, it might be useful for you to, venture more into application level and then go into philosophical areas. So I would say systems engineering, searching for systems engineering, and then there is this INCOSE. They are the systems engineering community. So maybe I can give Nasi some of the links, and Nasi can forward to the attendees. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I think we don't have more questions. So now let me invite Brother Shahid to give a vote of thanks. Shahid, are you there?
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I would like to thank our speaker, Brother Haneef, for giving a very insightful talk on systems thinking. It was, to say the least, at least an eye-opener into, considering approaches, or how do we, deal with problem solving. I think that's the simplest way to put it. So definitely it was an insightful session. I personally would like to learn more about this. Inshallah, as the brother rightly pointed out, he will be sharing the resources, and I hope to learn more from it, inshallah. I would like to thank also the team who worked behind this and in organizing this session, Brother Nasi and his entire team who organized this program very well. Thank you. And also I would like to thank the audience who attended the session today, and the brothers who have asked some very good questions as well. Thank you once again, and we hope to see you again soon in our next sessions organized by the team, inshallah. And with that, I would like to end, and Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.